First, before you look around to make sure no one sees you watching this video, let's be honest with ourselves about one thing. It is an industry rarely named by mainstream media, yet it is a destination everyone knows or has visited: pornography. Satisfying one of humanity's most primal needs, the prevalence of adult films is nothing new. It is also not difficult to point out the long-term consequences of abusing virtual pleasure, including physiological dysfunction and profound impacts on the brain, daily routines, and real-life relationships. Of course, we will not waste each other's time with theories that can be found via a 2-minute Google search. The booming success of adult film platforms is a synthesis of many factors, including the pressures of modern life and the urge for instant gratification, not just to satisfy desire, but to suppress negative emotions. A sincere piece of advice: if you cannot go a single day without entering a private browser at least several times, seek professional counseling. In today's somewhat sensitive video, we will look at this issue through the very ordinary story of one man. In the trash can in the corner of his room lies a mountain of tissues, and he owns a computer whose browsing history he would never want anyone to see. This is Don Jon, the title character of the 2013 film, a true porn addict. However, his story is not only meaningful to men in similar situations, it is a quintessential representation of the friction in relationships and the misguided expectations of love and sex that almost everyone experiences at some point. Interesting, isn't it? Let's dive in. To talk about Don Jon, he is not obsessed with adult film stars because of failure or insecurity in reality. On the contrary, Don is quite a catch, a man who easily catches the eye of any woman. He works at a bar, lives in a spotless apartment, works out religiously to maintain a six-pack, and hits the streets every day in a stylish car. He also loves his family and never misses Sunday morning mass. Consequently, it is no surprise when Don trades charm for phone numbers. These women party with him, let him touch their tight dresses, and go home with him every night. Don claims he only pursues women who are an 8 or higher, and this flashy lifestyle seems perfect on the surface. However, when the pleasure subsides and the night reveals its secrets, we see Don quietly leave the bed. Even with a beautiful woman lying right next to him, he sits upright on the sofa, opens his laptop, and scrolls through a long list of explicit videos. Why is that? Don's answer is that real people are not as satisfying as the staged scenes on screen. In the digital world, he can have whatever he wants. Hot actresses with every imaginable look and measurement, performing countless provocative positions. The women who go home with him every night cannot, or rather will not, do things that go beyond certain boundaries, and that leaves Don feeling unfulfilled. From here, it is clear that a severe problem exists within this man: distorted sexual illusions. Adult film scripts cater to Don's every whim. The women in the videos do not complain about his preferences or say no, allowing him to lose himself in a pre-planned climax. In reality, when the brain becomes accustomed to intense stimulation, the reward system, the neural structure responsible for pleasure and motivation, becomes desensitized. It then demands even higher doses of dopamine to feel satisfied. Consequently, real-life experiences, which are naturally slower and more complex, become less attractive. Reality pales in comparison to the fast-paced entertainment on the screen, and the differences between real women and those in films become a barrier. Furthermore, with the advancement of technology, accessing pornographic content is easier than ever. Don has a sleek laptop and can even watch on his handheld phone anywhere. Modern pornography can be likened to fast food: tasty, cheap, and ubiquitous. But the long-term effects on the body are similar to grease and saturated fat. Tissues pile up steadily in the trash. Church sessions are constantly spent confessing for what his hands have done. Without even realizing it, Don has become a full-blown porn addict. Is there a specific cause behind Don becoming a devotee of these films? It is hard to say it stems from a single factor. However, the truth is that we live in a world where attention is a high-value currency, and the easiest way to capture that attention is through sexualized imagery. From the very first scene, we see advertisements, entertainment shows, and music videos attracting audiences with hot content. There is a particularly humorous segment where Jon and his father are glued to a Carl's Jr. commercial featuring a lingerie model eating a burger on a beach. Please do not misunderstand. This is not a critique of how women choose to dress. For a long time, many major corporations and brands have bought viewer attention with scantily clad images, sometimes pushing into the realm of the pornographic. Although Don Jon was released over a decade ago, today we still see that provocative imagery remains the preferred choice to attract viewers across all social media platforms. Putting aside traditional customs or morality, this situation inadvertently causes men like Don to form skewed illusions about women and intimacy. At a bar, he meets a stunning girl named Barbara Sugarman. During their first encounter, Don tries to kiss her, despite being politely rejected. What makes him think he is entitled to do so? Barbara says no, but he doesn't care. Don seems to treat her words like a line from the movies he watches. He even shares that when he finds a great video, he feels sad because he wonders why those girls don't exist in real life. This is the consequence of consuming unhealthy content. Despite being in contact with many women, Jon clings to fantasies of fleeting, imaginary pleasures. These unrealistic forms of sex are inviting, beautiful, and easily accessible, yet they leave him with a high that quickly fades. The girls never stay more than one night, and the joy never lasts until sunrise. With his head full of looping explicit images, Don knows something is wrong, but he doesn't know how to fix it. Unable to go a day without his laptop, he slowly becomes aware of his alarming state. He is not happy. Ironically, this realization occurs during a line of dialogue in a movie. "Do you want a meaningful relationship?" the actress asks, jolting Don awake. A meaningful relationship, that is what everyone claims is the answer to a happy life. Don's father agrees. Starting a family is a man's greatest joy. So, he empties the tissues from his trash can, decides to start his own version of No Nut November early, and vows to stay away from the website with the orange logo. The problem is, where does one find a meaningful relationship? Don immediately thinks of Barbara Sugarman, the only girl who flatly refused to go home with him that night. The reason is simple. She is gorgeous, demanding, and sophisticated. Winning her over takes time and effort, and Don figures that must be the definition of a lasting relationship. He believes that if they go the distance together, their intimacy will be passionate, and he will regain his interest in reality. With this new goal, Don adds her on Facebook and asks her out for coffee. Things go well, and she likes him too. Coffee turns into movies, then dinner dates, meeting the parents, and going to church. Soon they are living like a young married couple, even planning for the future. From any angle, this is a major step forward. Barbara makes Don's life better. She pushes him back to school to get a better job and wants him to grow into a successful man. Now when he goes to the bar, Don doesn't care about anyone else because the woman by his side is an 11. They don't rush. After getting to know each other, they finally decide to sleep together. They do everything by the book, investing all their time and heart into it. Don is confident that this time he will find the pleasure he lost. However, the irony strikes again. Once more, Don sneaks out at night. In an incomprehensible way, he continues to glue his eyes to his familiar screen stars. Fearing Barbara will find out, he watches in his car or during class. Cracks begin to form, and the reason remains the same. Barbara does not provide the satisfaction Don expected. Why? Why would a man who has almost everything still choose to return to empty entertainment for artificial thrills? When Barbara discovers his horrifying browsing history, Don pays the price. She cries, feels betrayed, insults him, and dumps him immediately. Despondent, the addict returns to the only dopamine fix he knows, attempting to change only to fall back into the same pit. Don's sickness worsens. He breaks his own records for tissue usage, locks himself in his room, and grows more resentful toward women. Bitches, he curses. Barbara could never compare to the actresses, and he decides that emotions are just a waste of time. The cycle repeats. Don goes to a bar, brings someone home, and sneaks out at night to watch videos. It's a dead end, isn't it? A meaningful relationship in the theoretical sense was not the answer. So where is it? The thing this handsome guy is searching for. The savior who finally unravels the knot for Don is the person he least expects. Esther, a classmate from night school. Unlike Barbara, she is a mature woman with visible signs of aging on her face. Certainly not someone Don would look at twice. But strangely, she understands everything he shares. Among all his acquaintances, she is the only one he confides in. She is perhaps the first person brave enough to tell this handsome man that regardless of how many women throw themselves at him, he doesn't truly understand them. Above all, she calls him selfish. She points out that the way he connects is like a one-way street. Only then does it dawn on Don. He was seeking a sense of immersion but never once asked if the girls with him felt the same. He thought he was in a meaningful relationship with Barbara, but his goal was still his own satisfaction. There is a subtle detail here. Barbara also has distorted expectations of men. She is so addicted to cheesy romantic movies that she believes true love means sacrificing everything. It must be about explosive kisses and driving into the sunset. Barbara didn't love Don. She just liked having a submissive prince to satisfy her need for control. That is why, when she found her prince hunched over a laptop, she acted as if it were the most disgusting thing on earth. In the end, the problem is incredibly simple. We don't understand each other. We lie next to one another without knowing or caring what the other is thinking. Adult films, advertising, media, and social media are indeed harmful. But they only amplify what already exists within us. An inherent fear that by truly connecting, we must face the imperfections of others. This is clearly shown when Don first meets Esther. She is crying, but he indifferently walks past because he doesn't want to get involved in trouble. To Don, spending time understanding someone is a chore. It's easier to pick up a partner at a bar who also just wants a one-night stand. Understanding his misguided expectations, Don eventually goes home with Esther. It is a somber night. He is sad because something inside him has collapsed. As for Esther, she has always been crying alone. Her husband and son died in a car accident. They hold each other, slowly, simply. No exaggerated sounds, no complicated positions. This is not a woman who is an 8, and they are both in a heavy mood. Yet it is the best night of his life. It is wonderful because two people truly understand each other, and they attach a specific meaning to their intimacy. A sense of giving and receiving, something that lingers until the next morning, even after Don has left. In the film, there is an interesting linguistic detail. Don often uses the F word as a curse when he is angry. The other term, which signifies deep affection, make love, was initially dismissed by Don as childish sentiment. But in the end, that is the term he uses to explain his connection with Esther. It wasn't love at first sight, it wasn't superficial, and it wasn't something that made Don think of distant things like marriage or children, those definitions of happiness others gossip about. Don's love simply lies in the act of making love, in the mutual understanding when two people blend into one. Close the laptop and go outside to find real love. That was the answer Don found for himself. And I must confess, it sounds old-fashioned. Understanding another person is difficult. Living with someone else is hard. And becoming one with someone else is likely the hardest thing in the world. It is uncomfortable, messy, and not nearly as pretty as what fast-paced entertainment provides. Especially in a world where media is competing for attention with all kinds of fictionalized sexuality, it becomes even harder. But perhaps it is the only answer, the only joy that will last until the next morning, and the only thing that is real. Don walks with Esther through New York in the romantic sunlight that he once never bothered to notice. They share a profound moment where both feel fulfilled. Perhaps one cannot write the phrase "make love" without mentioning love. And if there is love, it must carry a certain meaning. Pleasures will come and go, and perhaps meaning is the only thing that stays. So don't give up too soon, and don't rush to find quick gratification. Because what is achieved quickly disappears just as fast. The emptiness that remains after a moment of pleasure when you are alone in a silent room, suddenly realizing you desperately need someone, that might be the most terrifying feeling of all.